remember when I turned 5. I know you're like, how do you remember you turned 5, girl? I do. When I turned 5, it was time to go to school. And my very first school was Assumption Catholic School in Washington, D.C. I don't even know if it still is there, Assumption Catholic School. I started there in kindergarten. And I remember I had a stiff red and blue plaid little jumper and little navy blue knee-high socks with a Peter Pan collar blouse. And um, I had like a navy blue cardigan, a button up. I'm just painting a picture for y'all because this is before my eyes got delivered, so I had the little red glasses. And I was a little kid. I was sauced up, like it was cute, like the little plaid skirt. And anyway, I digress. I had it all together. It was a whole little fit going on. And I remember I was nervous to be in such unfamiliar surroundings. I had been home with my auntie previously, and this was like my first time around kids other than like at church and my family. And I remember the first time I saw a nun, I was like petrified, because their faces always seemed so stern and cold, and they never seemed to walk, but they like glided down the halls in like an eerie flow that made me like super uncomfortable. And I would cling to my mother because my view of God to this point was based on Pentecostal coaching, right? They were loud and not ashamed to move in whatever way they felt the Holy Spirit led them. And I remember being shell-shocked at my first chapel. Like a priest almost whispering a sermon. He wasn't yelling. And my music teacher was on this organ and singing from a hymnal and kneeling and standing nonstop. If you ever go to mass, like you stand up, you sit down, you stand up, you sit down. It's like a lot going on. And I remember when I first saw the kneelers for your knees, like I was confused. And I was like, what is that for? But let's dismiss the kneelers. There was nothing compared to my first communion, like me experiencing communion for the first time. I had watched communion all my life, like the first time communion in a Catholic church, because I had watched communion my whole life in my church, Church God in Christ. We had grape juice in those little containers, paired with those little round wafers, and someone would speak over the table that held all the objects in front of the church, and it was draped in like a white tablecloth, and we would sing, I know it was the blood, I know it was the blood, all those like hymnals, and we would sing those, and everybody would start participating in the communion. Then we would line up and everybody would receive the sacrament. And if they didn't pass them out through the aisles, you could go up where it was like passed down through the aisles and everybody passed it, row to row to row. Although it was special, sacred moment every first Sunday of the month, that's when we would do it at church. It was inevitable that whenever we did communion at church, like the rafters would shake, people running, everybody like, like that's church, everybody just going, running around, and, people, it was, growing up Pentecostal was a time, like you saw a little bit of everything. Everybody was going helter-skelter, everybody was like going all out, but it was just the movement of the Holy Spirit, and it was just doing what they felt they had to be doing. After we would eat it and drink it, it was on. Everybody was running. Somebody would cry out, and somebody would be speaking in tongues, and maybe even take off running around the church. And none of that fazed me. Like I was so used to that. But communion in the Catholic Church in the 80s was nothing like that. It was like quiet, and you had to line up to receive like your wafer. And then like in another line, you would drink from one. Yes. I repeat, 1 cup. Like as each person would drink, like the priest would like rotate the cup, or like it looked like a goblet. It had like a little stem on it, but he would like rotate the cup, and with his cloth, he would wipe the area where your lips or your mouth had touched it. And my mom was blown, even as a small child. My mom always said not to drink after anybody. You know the rules. Don't you be drinking after people. And I remember, my young mind like reeling at the unease of disobeying my mama. But on the other hand, I had to obey the teachers. And it was something through the years in that small elementary school I would never get used to. There was things, however, I could never conform to there. And the communion was wild because everybody's drinking out that same cup. And you know what was crazy or strange about the communion situation? I don't remember seeing him fill a cup. It was like I never in the cup. And how did they know how much to sip out the cup? Like that would never go in this COVID world. But think about how they know how much to sip, like to leave enough for everybody in the line. A lot of different factors. You know what I'm saying? How they know how much to drink. You take a little swig. I don't even remember how much I would drink. And then you got kids drinking all that spit back. We like 5 to 6. Ooh, it's a whole nother thing. But let me tell you, nothing topped the confessional. I would never